Welcome to my series of videos on the clause elements. So the verb element. Now in this I'll be talking about the verb element, not just verbs in general. So if you're not sure on what a verb is or different types of verbs on a word level, this isn't the video for you. You might want to look for that elsewhere, or look at that first if you're not sure before looking at the verb element video. So, what can be a verb element? Well, a single verb. So, I being the subject in all these examples here. I drove to the shop. I was a star. I'm here. Notice the contraction of I'm here. The verb therefore is am. It's just a shortened version. And then verb phrase. So this is a group of verbs together, and that depends. This depends or says what tense it is. So I have been working all night. Have been and working, all verbs. I did not go. So verbs with the negative modifier of not, and I haven't got being the verb phrase in the last example. Now verb phrases are separated in two different functions. So there is the transitive and intransitive. Now some verbs can be used in both the transitive and intransitive forms, whereas some are only transitive and some are only intransitive. So intransitive is verbs which can be used without an object. So let's just have a look at those before we move on. So, I am going. He lied. I am going to the party. He is lying to you. None of those have an object on it. The fuller sentences, the expanded sentences, I'm going to the party, he is lying to you, both have, in this case, adverbials on the end. It's not an object. So these can be used without an object. In fact, I think these examples can only be used without an object. So I appeared, he died, I digress, he fell. They all work like that. Or you can add an adverbial onto the end. So like the example with he is lying to you. So if intransitive is verbs that are used without an object, transitive require an object. Which are followed by an object. Now I'm not going to say require an object, because those that fall into both, I would use the phrasing of they can be in their intransitive form or intransitive state or transitive form. It's much safer talking about them like that rather than just permanently categorizing, saying this is a transitive verb. If you really want to check and make that sort of strong judgment, if you just try it with several objects at the end. If it can't be used with a variety of objects, then chances are it can only be used in its intransitive form. But if it can be used with an object, try it without an object and see if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, then chances are it can only be used in its transitive form. So let's have a look at some transitive verbs. Bring, carry, desire, find, get, keep, like, make, need, use. So I brought a cake. You can't just say I brought. With keep, obviously I put will with it as well. I will keep it. I will keep. Doesn't make sense. Funnily enough, it will keep does make sense, but I will keep it doesn't. I will keep by itself doesn't make sense. It needs the it to be the object at the end of there. So I found a key. I found by itself doesn't make sense. I got a new phone. I got by itself doesn't make sense. Okay, so that's verb elements in their transitive or intransitive forms. So at the bottom it says many verbs can fall into both categories depending on how they are used in the clause. However, most of the time it does change the meaning. So if you tell your friend you're expecting a text, that's very different from taking the object off and telling your friend you're expecting. The phrase I'm expecting generally implies that you're with child. He ran a shop. Shows that someone's a businessman and they're running their own business, whereas he ran by itself implies something very different. It means that they're going for a jog or exercising. So the meaning is often changed with the same verb used in the different forms. Just finally, there's this little box over here. Just one warning, sometimes in speech, so I suppose this is why it's good to know your intransitive and transitive verbs when analysing speech. If you're writing I mean down, you wouldn't use it in its intransitive form like that. You would have to, by itself it doesn't make sense, but it is something that we use colloquially in speech. Also in some regions they say things like I go shop. To look at that, to analyse it, it looks like a transitive I go used in a transitive form. However, it has just got the preposition and the article to the missed out. So actually it's good to know your intransitive and transitive forms when analysing speech to see how people use speech differently and how people vary and miss certain words out, and how that maybe affects the transcribed look of the phrase, as opposed to the actual semantics, the meaning of the phrase. Okay, and I think that's it for the verb element. Yeah. So what it might be worth doing now is sorry, I'm probably making you a bit dizzy now, is having a look at some sentences, having a look at the verb element in action, and seeing whether it's a single verb or a verb phrase, and then trying to work out whether it's in a transitive or intransitive form. Thank you.